Hello, YouTube coin collectors and stackers. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite coins, the Mercury Dime, the humble Mercury Dime. Now, many of you who stack in particular will see these in junk 90 trays at your local coin shop. And often these dimes sell out very fast when you find them in junk 90 trays. They're very popular from a barter standpoint. People feel like these are highly recognizable versus, say, a Roosevelt dime, which could be clad or silver. Mercury dimes are always 90% silver. And this is all stuff that I pulled out of local junk 90 bins in my area. And, you know, some of the stuff is actually quite nice. Now, this is a very common 1945, but still very nice stuff can be found in these junk 90 bins. So today what I wanted to talk about with our good friend, the Mercury Dime, there's a little bit of the history, some tips on collecting the Mercury Dime, and just looking at some dimes together. So first, a little bit about the history of the Mercury Dime. So the Mercury Dime, I'm going to bring this up here. The Mercury Dime came out in 1916. I have a better one than that, I'll show you later. But it came out in 1916, and it was designed by a gentleman named Adolph Weinman. Adolph Weinman was a German immigrant. He immigrated to the United States when he was 14 years old. And by 15 years old, he was studying art at some of the more prestigious art schools in New York, and soon found himself in the tutelage of Augustus St. Gaudens, who you might remember from the double eagle and the eagle that were redesigned at the beginning of the 20th century. Many people don't know that St. Gaudens was also asked to do the cent, and he was actually thinking about bringing back the Flying Eagle cent. Unfortunately, he was in ill health at that time. He was dying from cancer, and he passed away before even his famed double eagle rolled off of the production press. But a few years later, during this what we call the Renaissance of American coinage, it was decided in 1915 to redesign the dime, the quarter, and the half dollar. Adolph Weinman was given both the dime, that we're seeing here with my wonderful ring light, as well as the half dollar. Many of you might recognize that as the Walking Liberty half dollar. A gentleman named Hermes McNeil was given the quarter, and that is the Standing Liberty quarter. The woman who we see on the dime is a woman. She was a young woman when she modeled for Mr. Weinman. 27 years old in 1913, she modeled for him. And her name was Elsie Stevens. Elsie Stevens modeled for him. He made a bust of her. And in 1916, when he was awarded the dime, used that bust as a model for the dime itself. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can really look at the details on the dime. Now this dime here is a 1916 MS65 full bands dime. And we'll flip it over and we'll see the full bands there. You can see them very clearly. All full bands, particularly look at that middle band. So on the dime we have this wing on the Phrygian cap. Some will say it's on the helmet. This is not Mercury. This is actually Liberty, and it's originally called a Winged Liberty Dime, and the Winged Liberty Dime got the name Mercury Dime in the press later because some people in the press decided that this looked like Mercury, and the name caught on. So we know it as the Mercury Dime today, but the official name is the Winged Liberty Dime. And when he was asked later, why did you put this wing on Liberty, he said the wing represents freedom of thought, or liberty of thought. That's why he put it on there initially. So some of the things we look at on the dime are across her face here, we have this hairline. She had beautiful long blonde hair, and he captured that here. We have the wing, the Phrygian cap, Adolph Weinman's initials here. These become important when we go to grade dimes, particularly wear along the hairline here and wear on the wing. On the reverse, we have the fasces. The fasces was a Roman symbol of power, wielded by the emperors, and it's a bundle of sticks with an axe inside with this olive branch wrapped around it. So this was World War I when this dime came out, and we wanted to present this idea that we're strong, but we're also open to peace. And that's why Adolph Weinman selected the fasces with the olive branch on the design. This fasces became very controversial later because in the early 1920s, a gentleman named Mussolini adopted this same symbol for his fascist party, and that's where the fascist word comes from. It comes from the fasces. So here's a beautiful 1916 And what's wonderful about collecting this series, if you're a type collector and you want to get the first year, as often type collectors do, you look for something that's representative of the first year. This beautiful 1916 MS65 full bands coin is about a $220, $240 coin. So obviously, you know, not the cheapest coin in the world, certainly not the most expensive, but you can pick, and full bands, which is not uncommon for this year, but you can pick these up for just a couple $100 if you're a typeset collector, or if you're a Mercury Dime collector and you want a nice high-grade example of one of these. Now, following this dime is one of the most sought-after coins in U.S. numismatics, and that is the 16 Denver. This is a very, very low mintage coin, and the second most altered or counterfeited coin there is. And you can see the D down here. And there's some diagnostics. In a later video, I'm going to cover some diagnostics on determining whether you have an authentic 1916 D or not. But there's a lot of ways that they counterfeit these, including adding Ds to just regular 1916 dimes, which are quite plentiful. If they weren't quite plentiful, you couldn't get something in this sort of mint state for a couple $100. So here's your 1916 Denver. And a lot of them just kind of look like this. They're in this worn condition. They only minted something like 268 or so thousand of these. And it was believed that the presses in Denver only ran for one shift. But they're not, then there's no records. They don't know for sure. The Denver Mint was then asked to switch over all of their production to quarters, which were desperately in need in the channels of commerce. So Denver shut down the dime press after a day or so and switched to quarters, which they produced for the rest of 1916, and began producing Mercury dimes in quantity in 1917. But here's an example of a good 4, and you can see the scratch there right across the fasces. I'm trying to keep it out of the ring light, but you can see the scratch there. So this one gets a good 4 details grade. I don't mind because the detail on the back is good. It's got almost a full rim. The back of it's probably closer to a 6. So I get a $300-400 discount on this coin because it has a scratch on the back. Personally, I really don't care. I'm just happy to have one. There are 4 reverses that were used for the 1916 Denver dime. This is the reverse 3, and my goal is to actually collect one of each of the 4 reverses on the 16 Denver. Some stuff that we see later. Here's a beautiful 1920 with some beautiful toning on it. This is also a full bands coin, MS64. Again, these are not, look at that, look at how beautiful that is. These are not very expensive. Full bands coins for 1920 are not all that rare. We'll talk about the rarest of all the full bands coins shortly, but I bought this coin just simply because, oh, you can see the price on the back, flip it over real quick. But what did I pay for this? Oh, $225. There you go. I don't know why I'm hiding that from you guys. So $225. I think that's a beautiful coin for $225. I mean, again, you know, this is amazing that you can pick these up for as low a cost as you can, especially if you're a typeset collector and you're looking just for some beautiful coins that you can pick up sort of on the cheaper side of things. Here's a 1935, not full bands, but an MS65. And you can see how beautiful Elsie Stevens was. She lived until 1963, and this bust of her that Adolph Weinman used to create the Mercury Dime, she owned that until her death. In 1962, she attempted to give that away to her daughter Holly, but her daughter Holly knew how much that this bust meant to her mom, and her mom was aware that it was used for the Mercury Dime. So Holly insisted that her mom keep the bust. I'm looking at these dimes. I'm getting distracted. Keep the bust. And when her mom died in 1963, a year later, Holly went to go retrieve the bust, and it was gone. And it's been gone ever since. No one's seen it since. Here's just an AU58. But even in an AU58, this looks beautiful. So this bust of Elsie Stevens is gone since 1963. So will it show up on, you know, somebody's YouTube channel? Will it show up on the Antiques Roadshow? Or you know, the what's that pawn show? Pawn Stars, or who knows, right? Or maybe never again. Maybe it's in a landfill somewhere. Here's another one. This is 1938 MS64 full bands. I want to say that I'd have to look in my records and see how much that cost, but that was not an expensive coin either. I love these old, I'll get a couple here, these old soapbox or fatties or whatever they're called. You know, I got a pair of these here, 39 MS66, and a 41 San Francisco MS67. I'm sorry, I apologize, this one's still in the plastic wrap. Again, not expensive coins at all. Of course, whenever you see these, you want to buy them, right? These old rattlers. Yeah, so here's one in an old rattler. MS65 43 San Francisco. This was I thought this was a very pretty coin, even though it's not a full bands coin. It just has beautiful luster. Not quite like that 1920, but very nice as well. And we get up to our 1944 Denver 65 full bands coin, and that just looks like it just came from the mint. It really does. You know, there's a couple little marks on it, but just a stunning, stunning coin. Let's see if we can get the full bands. There they are again. Just a beautiful shot of the full bands. Nice reflection. The ring light's actually helpful in this case, but you can see how those full bands are struck. And it's very difficult in some years for these full bands. And we're going to talk about the most difficult year in a moment, because this band here in the middle is directly across from one of the highest points on the coin right here. So it doesn't always strike up. And there were certain years where it really didn't strike up at all. In particular, 1945. Here's a 1945 MS66. And this one's very toned. You can see the luster on it under all that toning. This is the one with the micro S. And I often call 1945 the year of the S, because there are probably a dozen different punchy-on S's that have been identified with 1945, including knobtail S's and all these different style of S's. This one's called the micro S. Really small S. Let's see if I can get it on there in the image. It's going to be hard to see with all that toning. I apologize. But 1945, Philly, which is the second highest mintage of all of the Mercury Dimes, is the hardest one, believe it or not, to get with full bands. It is that hard to get. So when we talk about, let's switch over to typeset collecting for Mercury Dimes. I love not only to go with that first year, like I showed you the 1916, but I love the proofs. And I started collecting them. And there's 7 different ones that you can get. 7 different years you can get. And they start in 1936, and there's 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, and 42. I'm still searching for the first 3, the 36, 37, 38. I started mine off with this Proof 62, 1939, and this one's got a DDO on it, a Wexler DDO 06, and we'll talk about Wexler in a moment. And the DDO is really hard to see on this, but it's definitely there and got the designation. So I said, you know, these Mercury, this was about $140 or so, $150 for a proof dime. And these have crazy low mintages. You're talking about mintages that start off around like 3,500 in the first year, and they basically just kind of get around 20,000. And that's it. And you think about the proof mintages today that are in the hundreds of thousands or millions that we see today, you know, a lot of the proof stuff from these years is all significant, like under, I think this 1939 is under 10,000 for these. And the 36 being, I think, like 3,500, so that's why you get the premium on that. But you can just see how beautifully struck up these are. This is the 1940 Proof 66. I've got this 41 CAC Proof 66 here. It's got some toning on it. This is a pretty coin as well. And, you know, it's funny because you would think they all, this one has full bands, you think they'd all strike up with full bands, but sometimes they don't. Some of these coins don't actually strike up with full bands. Some of these proofs, believe it or not. Most of them do, because they're proofs, but not all of them do. Here's one I picked up in an auction from Stax Bowers recently. It's a 42 Proof 67. There's a giant jump in prices when you start to get up here. So like this coin here, around $300 for this coin. I think I picked it up for about $280. I think a gray sheet's for like $320 or something. You guys can correct me below. But as soon as you go to a Proof 68, this jumps to like $1,100. So I subscribe to Q David Bowers. He's got a philosophy that, you know, it's called optimal collecting grade, which is you buy the grade right below the big jump. So that's what I always try to do if I can afford it. So, you know, you get the one right below the big jump. So in the case of the 42, it's the Proof 67. And this is $300, then it jumps to $1,100 for the 68. Same with the last one, which is the well, this is the last one. My apologies, the 1942. Because why did they stop making proofs in 1942? World War II. They had bigger things to worry about. They were changing the metals on the nickels and turning them into silver manganese nickels, and they were making steel pennies and all sorts of things to try to conserve resources and metal. So proofs went by the wayside in the wake of World War II. Now, if we look at my big capital holder, and I did take the top off this so we could actually look at these. You know, you work really hard to get the best ones you can get, but you'll see, you know, I showed you the 16. I have that in a slab. The other one that you'll see, the other hole I have here is this 42/41, and I will show you that in a minute. I do have that in a slab as well. The 42/41 is an interesting variety on the Mercury Dime. It's the only Mercury Dime generally that has a hole in a Whitman album or a Dansko book, or like this capital holder. And the 42/41, here's one here. This is a very fine. It's detailed, it's clean. You can kind of see the cleaning on it. It's very light. I didn't mind because I got a really nice deal on this coin. But let's see if I can zoom in and we can see the 42/1. See the 2 there? See how it almost looks like a 12? So this was actually hubbed this way. They took a 41 and they re-hubbed it with a 42, and then they started cranking these suckers out. And there's two, the Denver and the Philly, both have these overdates. And this is the most famous, most collectible in the series of Mercury Dimes. But the Mercury Dime series there's no shortage of varieties throughout the series, double dies, and repunchment marks. There's a gazillion repunchment marks and all of these wonderful things in the Mercury Dime series. And I'm going to wrap with one other sort of piece of Mercury Dime. Let me find a pretty one we can look at while I wrap up with a little piece of Mercury Dime history. So in the we'll get this one because this one's just too pretty. So right around World War II, people started, you know, finding these dimes in circulation that they didn't have holes in their Whitman books. In the early 1930s and into the 40s, collecting by date and mint mark became very popular. So everyone had their Shoreline books and Dansko and Whitman books and all this stuff that they were filling up. And all of a sudden, these dimes start showing up. And I don't have any to show you, unfortunately. The first was a 23 Denver, and the second was a 1930 Denver. So a 1923 Denver, 1930 Denver. So people were finding these in circulation, and they were showing up at their local coin shop, and they were saying, wait a second. There's no spot in my book for these. What do I do? And so these coin dealers were perplexed, and they said, my God, we're not sure. And they looked into it, and sure enough, there was no 1923, and there was no 1930 Denver. So what happened? Well, it turns out what people believe is the Soviets were minting these, and they dumped them into the market in Germany and other places where there were American troops. And then after World War II, they started circulating in the United States. And these are called Soviet dimes, and you might find them from time to time. I'm on the hunt for one. I'm on the prowl for one. So we're at 18 minutes. A lot of history, a lot of dimes we looked at today. I'm going to continue the series with some more history. But thank you guys, as always, for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy collecting.